Class of 2019, I congratulate you. Your graduation is at hand. Great work on all your accomplishments, everything you've done here during your time at Walsh. I'm very happy for you, proud of you, and pray for the very best into the future. Know that I'm always here in your corner to pray for you, to love you, to support you, and to listen to you. Anything going on in life, don't hesitate to look me up and to talk. So you've asked for some advice here as you go on to walk at graduation and go on to your next chapter of life. So basically I have just a handful of quotes, especially these sticky notes I like to keep on my desk here in my office at Walsh. Some of the most meaningful quotes I have, one from Blessed Jean-Marie de Lamennais, one of the founders of the Brothers of Christian Instruction, who founded Walsh in 1960. And then two quotes from St. Edith Stein and one from St. Elizabeth of the Trinity. So I'd like to share these quotes and just comment briefly on them. Hopefully this won't take too many minutes, but I hope you find what I have to say very meaningful and inspiring as you go about the future. The overall message is two things: pursue truth with passion and lean into suffering. Pursue truth and lean into suffering. But first I want to begin with a quote from the book of Proverbs, chapter 4, verses 7 through 9 and verse 13. The beginning of wisdom is, get wisdom. Whatever else you get understanding. Extol her, and she will exalt you. She will bring you honors if you embrace her. She will put on your head a graceful diadem. A glorious crown she will bestow on you. Hold fast to instruction, never let it go. Keep it, for it is your life. So this is wisdom, to pursue truth with passion and to lean into suffering. The first quote I want to take from Blessed Jean-Marie de Lamennais, and he's talking about truth. I just love this quote so much, and I think it really embodies what we might call the Catholic approach to truth, the Catholic way of thinking, the both ands, the dialectic, all these things. So he says, when truth enters the heart, it first stirs up trouble. It is only when it has penetrated and reigned deep in the soul that the peace of God comes in to dwell in it. I just love how he puts that. When it first enters the heart, truth stirs up trouble. It makes us think. It raises this tension where we're not allowed to be complacent. We're not allowed to rest on our laurels. But nevertheless, in the end, it grants us this peace of Christ, who is the truth, beyond all understanding. So pursue the truth with passion. I hope you do this throughout your whole life and don't sell out to those forces of things like secularism and pragmatism and stuff like this that is working to erode the liberal arts, education, and things like philosophy and theology. It's really happening in the culture. It seems like we might be seeing this more and more. So never stop pursuing truth with a passion. Second, lean into suffering. I have two quotes from Edith Stein, I think, that go together, and then a final quote from St. Elizabeth of the Trinity. So Edith Stein writes this: every time I feel my powerlessness and inability to influence people directly, I become more keenly aware of the necessity of my own holocaust. This is what she and other saints call self-forgetfulness. So we want so much to influence people. We wish we could influence people directly. We wish oftentimes we were God and we could enter people's souls and stir them and work to change them from the inside out. But as St. Paul writes in 1 Corinthians, and has become the motto of Walsh, sed Deus dat incrementum. But it is God who grants the increase, who gives the increase. And so oftentimes we can be a great witness, but we feel this inability to influence people directly, to be the one at work in their hearts to change them. But like John the Baptist, we're called to point to Christ as a kind of witness full of conviction, a kind of martyr. So Edith Stein talks about the necessity of her own Holocaust. She would die a martyr's death on August 9th, 1942. And she understands this martyrdom to be a daily witness to truth, even if we can't influence people directly most of the time. The second thing Edith Stein writes in a letter is this: I felt that those who understood the cross of Christ should take it upon themselves on everybody's behalf. So this is an amazing thing that she says. We might think of the world, and so many people out there that don't go to church, disconnected from God, disconnected from the gospel, all these things. And we might wonder, what difference can I make? Indeed, our witness is huge, but also there's something very mysterious and mystical about what Edith talks about, taking up the cross on someone else's behalf who may not know much about what the meaning of the cross is. That we are called to this, what's called vicarious suffering, substitution, substituting our place in the other as Jesus did for us in his saving and atoning death. That through our life of prayer, that through radical empathy for other people in our own hearts, we can even take up the cross on their behalf and suffer for them and suffer with them to bring them more and more into the fold of salvation. Incredible, incredible things here, incredible parting words I want to leave with you to think about as you go forward in life. And the last thing, to quote from Elizabeth of the Trinity, writing to her mother when she's suffering from what would be a fatal illness with her stomach and digestion at a very young age in her 20s. She writes this to her mother: I'm keeping a rendezvous with you in the shadow of the cross to learn the science of suffering. This is amazing. This is incredible. I believe what she's talking about here with the science of suffering, we can also call it the science of love, as called by Saint Therese, Saint John of the Cross, Saint Margaret Mary Alacoque. The science of suffering is something joyful. Don't be afraid to lean into suffering in life, to lean into the trials and tribulations of life, to lean into the challenges of life. Not simply to expose yourself to any kind of abuse or anything like this, but nevertheless to lean into suffering in general and lean into those difficult times in life, even as a gift from God. Because our lives are filled with challenges, but this is where love does its best work. So don't be afraid of suffering. Don't be afraid of the cross. As it turns out, for our faith, as we think about the life of Christ, the cross is the very way to resurrection. So I pray that as you go on from Walsh, you go on to the next chapter of life, that you lean into this suffering involved in the cross, which is at once the joy of resurrection. My prayers are with you. The communion of angels and saints, communion with the Most Holy Trinity is with you. Thank you so much for letting me be part of your life these past few years, and I hope to continue to be your friend, your brother in Christ, your cheerleader in life. So many blessings as you go forth on your next rendezvous of encounter.